I can still picture his sullen, tired face, but I could see such empathy in his eyes. Gerhard knew something which I didn't, and he was now clearly going to share it with me. The first thing he explained to me was that I was in need of treatment. No, I wasn't miraculously cured, despite what I might well think. On the contrary, I was definitely suffering from a psychological illness, and I was going to have to agree to be treated. My symptoms were very similar to those he had read about on the internet. And if those sources were to be believed, I could have severe complications if I was not treated soon. Gerhard didn't want to alarm me, but since we have always had a high level of trust between us, he knew that he couldn't hide what he knew from me, and that I would want him to tell me about it. He told me about a case he had read about online, of a woman who was suffering from postpartum psychosis. She was delusional and had ended up drowning her 5 children in the bathtub. Although it was unusual, this disorder could lead to infanticide and even suicide if it wasn't properly treated in time. This was enough to convince me and put an end to my foolishness. I was now willing to receive all the treatment available. I was a little taken aback, but I wasn't too frightened, and I was grateful to my husband for having the courage to speak to me and making me see reason. Nevertheless, he asked me not to mention what he had said to the nurse or her doctor. He felt it was better for them to ask me some more of their questions and give a professional diagnosis before announcing his own conclusions. Then he told me that after his internet search, he had called my brother to tell him I was in hospital and to explain what condition I was in. Since he was a little uncertain about how to tell my parents, especially since he didn't speak French, Gerhard left it up to him to decide how and when to pass on the news. My brother was really shaken by what he had heard, and decided to let my parents know straight away, knowing that my mother would certainly make arrangements to come and see us as soon as she could. A little later, the duty nurse arrived to tell us I was to be transferred to a private room. I could keep Elliot with me on the condition that there was always someone with us to look after him if I started not feeling well. Another nurse arrived almost immediately with a hospital trolley bag to take me and Elliot to my new room. Gerhard followed us. I don't know how they decided which floor I was going to be on. All I remember is seeing the neurology sign and a number of patients who could have been my grandparents. How strange, I thought. This place was far from familiar territory. To my great surprise, the room was rather large and seemed almost homely. The back wall was made up of large windows, which brightened up the room nicely. The bathroom was spacious and private, and there was only one bed. They had probably thought it best for me to have a private room because of my baby. I was not complaining. I had hardly arrived when a nurse brought me a hospital gown, which she asked me to wear once I had taken a shower. That was in fact what I was most looking forward to doing, having a wash. During the morning, Gerhard had a call from Holly, who wanted to know about my condition. When he told her that I had been admitted to hospital and that I had now been put in a private room, she made a note of all the details she needed to come and see me. She showed up in my room late morning. I was very glad to see her, and especially touched that she had come to visit me during one of her few days off. She must really have cared about us and wanted to be sure that we were in good hands. While Holly was talking with me, Gerhard took the opportunity to call my brother again and let him know what was happening. He told Gerhard that he had spoken with my parents about my situation and that my mother was hoping to come and see me as soon as possible. Gerhard did everything necessary to reserve a plane ticket so that my mother could come that very evening. While Gerhard was gone, a young doctor, Dr. M, arrived to speak to me. It was the first time I had seen him. After he had examined me and asked a few questions about my condition, he announced his diagnosis. Although the symptoms I had experienced had been rather unpleasant, he didn't think I would need to be at hospital for very long. I just had to have an ultrasound of my thigh to make sure there was no blood clot, as I thought there might have been because of the pain I had felt there. If nothing abnormal showed up, I could go home the next day. All I had to do if there was further pain or dizzy spells was to reason myself and tell myself that it would pass. Is that all? I thought. I struggled to believe it. As I caught Ollie's eyes, I knew straight away that she doubted the doctor's diagnosis. Since she wasn't a member of staff at the hospital, she wasn't in a position to argue with him, and so she didn't say a word. But as soon as he had left the room, she asked what I thought. I told her that I didn't want to go home, and that I felt my condition was much more serious than this doctor thought. She completely agreed with me. At that moment, Gerhard came back into the room after finishing his phone calls. Holly and I brought him quickly up to date with the doctor's visit and the diagnosis he had made. Gerhard was sorry to have missed this exchange, but he thought the same as we did. I needed a second medical opinion on my condition. I couldn't go home quite so soon. Holly asked us if it would be happy for her to contact a social worker she knew, who worked at the hospital and might be able to arrange for another doctor to examine me more closely. We were pleased with this idea, and so Holly left us for a few moments to try to get in touch with her. While she was gone, Gerhard brought me up to date with the discussion he had had with my brother and the arrangements he had made for my mother to come that very evening. He had even spoken to her on the phone, with my mother doing her best in English to agree on the time for him to come and pick her up at the airport. I was comforted by the idea that she had managed to drop all her commitments to come and offer her support. But since Gerhard was exhausted and wanted to catch up with as much sleep as possible, he told me he would not come back to the hospital after picking her up. I would only see them the following morning. Holly came back to our room and told us that the social worker would be round to see us during the afternoon. Then the nurse arrived with a hospital trolley bed to take me to have the ultrasound of my leg. I left Elliot with Gerhard and Holly. I remember the nurse being very nice and chatting with me to put me at my ease. His good mood did me good. I felt respected, which was really important for me in these difficult times. The ultrasound was over quite quickly. The man performing the scan inspected my leg carefully, but I could sense that he was wondering why I was being scanned. I was therefore not surprised when he asked me why the doctor had asked for me to have this test. I explained to him that a pain was moving up my thigh, which made me think I might have a blood clot. Although the pain has disappeared, the doctor must have preferred to be on the safe side and have it all checked out. With that, he announced that he couldn't see anything unusual in my leg and that there was no blood clot to be found there. This was reassuring, but deep down, I think I knew it already. I was starting to suspect that my pain of the last few days, which had suddenly disappeared, might be psychosomatic. But I decided not to mention this to anyone.